can believe that, 2022 at 7:07 p.m. All council members are present. Would you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all. We have a special presentation tonight, and we've been all looking forward to this. We have Douglas County Superintendent Erin Kane with us tonight, and she's going to be doing a presentation and an update on Douglas County schools. And just to let the public know, and we've talked to Superintendent Kane, the council's not going to be asking any questions after your presentation, but they will have a chance to meet with you outside of this meeting to discuss any topics. We just don't want to impact any good stuff you guys are working on by our
Terrific.
questions.
Thank you.
All right.
Great. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Welcome.
Mayor, council members,
Welcome.
I greatly appreciate it. I also want to do a shout out to you all for your 4th of July celebration. My family and I had a fantastic time, so thank you for that. It was a lovely evening.
And the superintendent helped us count down the drone show too.
did.
So it was great to be with you and your husband that night.
Even in the pouring rain.
Yes.
It was very fun. All right. All good?
We're good.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I tremendously appreciate it. I'm here tonight to talk about our school district, what state we're in, what our challenges are, and what our plans are. Assuming I can get the remote to work. And what happens if it doesn't work? Can anyone help? Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, great. I'll do that. There's a lot of queuing. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Okay, next slide. Thank you. All right. First of all, just to give you a little scope of Douglas County School District. This will be like 4 cues, thank you. Douglas County School District is spread over 844 square miles, which is about 2/3 the size of Rhode Island. We have 89 schools in our district, so there are certainly a lot of our schools in Parker, and there's a lot of our schools throughout Douglas County. We have about a year ago, we had $640 million in revenue. Now we're closer to $750 million in revenue. So we are the largest taxpayer-funded entity in the district. We are responsible for 64,000 students across our district and across those 89 schools. We offer programming for students from the time that they are 18 months, if they have special needs, all the way until they are young adults at 21. So we have programming for every student in our district, and it is amazing. Our students received $116 million last year in scholarships collectively to colleges. They saved our families, including mine, $3.7 million in college credits that they received while in our system. So we do amazing things. We have 8,600 employees. This makes us the largest employer in Douglas County. I believe Charles Schwab falls in at second with 4,700. So you can't hardly go to a restaurant, to a grocery store without running into people who work for Douglas County Schools. I always start with what do we want for our students? This is all about our kids, and it's all about their future, but it's also about the future of our county. Our district represents not only the education of our students, but also the economic engine for Douglas County. We attract businesses to Douglas County so that they can put their kids in our amazing schools. We produce graduates that stay and work in Douglas County. My family's been in Douglas County for 22 years, and my parents were in Douglas County. And I hope my oldest daughter will settle here in Douglas County. That's what we do. We come here and we stay. And we want to make sure that we're producing graduates that can work not only anywhere they want, but really here in Douglas County, which is where so many of them want to work. What do we want for our kids? We want to make sure that Douglas County School District remains a destination district where families come from across not only Colorado, but across the country in order to send their schools to Douglas County, where educators come from across our state and across our country in order to be a part of our amazing school district. We want to make sure that every single one of our children is ready when they leave our system for whatever comes next for them and has the brightest future possible. So they're ready to go to the college of their choice, or they have a certification or an associate's degree so that they can begin their journey in their career instead of just a job, or they're ready for military service. So we want to make sure that our kids are ready to start their career or college experience as soon as they leave our system. And finally, we want to make sure that every one of our schools is a point of pride for everyone in our community, whether you send your kids to school or not. As of this year, I am officially part of the 70% that does not send kids to school in Douglas County because I now have 3 kids in college. You can tell me later how bad you feel for me. Three all at once. It's fine. But truly, so many of us no longer send kids to our schools. But our schools are still so much a part of this community and so much a part of the economic engine that drives Douglas County. And I hope someday my grandkids grow up here. I don't have any right now. I don't want any anytime soon, but someday. What are we struggling with? We're struggling with our educator salaries. So we are not competitive with our neighboring school districts, not even close. You can see from the slide that you have in front of you that back in 2008, 9, 10, we were reasonably competitive, right in the middle of the pack. And you can see over time, we're the red dotted line. Over time, Douglas County School District became the least competitive district in terms of average teacher salary. And we're going to talk about why that is in the wealthiest county in Colorado, because I know you have questions. I would. We also are struggling with growth. We have growth happening all across Douglas County. I live in the Crowfoot Valley corridor, and every time I leave my house, I feel like they built 20 homes since yesterday. I don't even know how they're putting that many homes up. But we have so much growth in pockets in this county. We haven't built a neighborhood school since 2010. And these new communities need neighborhood schools. Just like when I moved into my community 22 years ago with a baby on my hip, I certainly expected that my neighborhood would have a neighborhood school, and indeed it did. Next slide. So this all starts with how our public schools are funded. This is something that our taxpayers in Douglas County don't know because it's not intuitive. When Douglas County thrives, and what I mean by that is our assessed values are high, we're seeing more and more businesses and more residences going up in our community. When that happens, our tax base is bigger, and all of the tax collecting entities in our school district collect more money. So our municipalities are doing well, our sheriff's department, all of our taxpayer-funded entities are doing very well from the growth in Douglas County. The school district is a little bit different, and this is where taxpayers say, our libraries are thriving. Look at our beautiful new libraries. What is our school district doing with all of their money? The school district is funded under the 1994 School Finance Act. The way that it works, we're not just funded by local taxpayers' dollars. We are also funded by state general fund dollars, which include income tax and sales tax. Every year, the state legislature sets the amount of money that Douglas County School District gets to run programming for kids. Consider that our bucket. So our bucket size is set each year by the state legislature. The revenue that goes in that bucket first comes from our local tax base, and the state fills in the difference. So when Douglas County is prospering from higher assessed values, et cetera, and our taxpayers in Douglas County are paying more into the schools, the state simply contributes less. There is no net impact for our schools. The only way to differentiate ourselves from other school districts is through a local mill levy override. Under the 1994 School Finance Act, and under the auspices of local control, that act allowed school districts to ask their local taxpayers for an up to 25% increase in funding through a mill levy override. Thanks to the generosity of our taxpayers in Douglas County, we're sitting at about 12%. So our current mill levy override represents a 12% increase in our funding. The challenge is that other school districts are at that 25% number. So what that means in real dollars, the difference between Douglas County and Cherry Creek, for example, they're right over there. I think I pointed in the right way. But the difference between us and Cherry Creek is $2,000 a student, all through mill levy override. That equates to $100 million in gap. It's huge. Of course, we can't pay our teachers competitively with that kind of gap, with a $2,000 a student gap. So what happens is over time, as we pass just the one mill levy override in 2018, but nothing since 2006 prior to 2018, and other districts continued to increase their mill levy override amount, we went from being in the middle of the pack to the bottom of the pack. Next slide, please. And you can kind of see that over time, how we went, to the bottom of the pack just from that mill levy override. The slide that you have in front of you now shows our funding through the School Finance Act. And again, it consists of local funding in blue and the state, where the state fills in the difference in green. I often get the comment, well, does that mean that Douglas County is paying so much locally that we're basically contributing local dollars to the state? We're not. You can see from the balance with other school districts that because we don't have as much commercial as, say, Denver and Boulder, our local tax base is actually not contributing quite as much on a percentage basis as in those two other districts. The gray on the top is where we, our citizens, have control over funding. And we decide how much we want to fund our local school districts. And so that's where you can really see, that's where that difference comes in of $2,000 a student. To me, this is just math and markets. It's super hard to hold on to teachers when they're getting a $20,000 raise to go to Cherry Creek School District. Teachers are just like us. They're raising families. They're putting kids through college. Their average teacher salary is $58,000 a year. When someone comes along and offers them $18,000 more a year, how do they say no? They've got kids in college. They're trying to figure it all out. How do they say no? And that is really our big challenge. Next slide, please. This is just, again, a little bit about our history. So we're, again, the red line, and you can see that over time we were much closer to our peers in terms of our ability to have mill levy override dollars. And just over time, our peers significantly outpaced us in terms of those mill levy overrides. So that's where that $2,000 per student gap comes in. Two nexts, one more. This is just a different way to look at our average educator salary. And honestly, it is not just our educators. It's everyone. Our paraprofessionals make very, very little money. And it's really hard for us to hold on to them. Our paraprofessionals work with our students with special needs. They work in our schools to support our teachers. And they can make a lot more money by going to Chick-fil-A. My own daughter has been a paraprofessional in our district, and she works at Walmart on the weekends in order to make up for the revenue, because she wants to be with kids so much that that's what she does during the week, but she still has to supplement on the weekend. Next slide, please. So again, you can see even our paraprofessionals, our custodians, our bus drivers, our campus security specialists, the ladies who serve your kids lunch in the kitchen, all of them could make more at Chick-fil-A, and this is another piece of what we're really dealing with as our challenge. Now, shifting a little bit to capital funding, how do we pay for schools? How does that even work? Well, it works the same way it has since 1994. When the School Finance Act was passed in 1994, it was contemplated, again, under the auspices of local control, that local communities, it was up to local communities to build schools and to maintain schools. The same way we're responsible for building our own libraries and maintaining our own libraries. We're responsible for building and maintaining our schools. Prior to 2006, we passed a bond for building and maintaining schools approximately every 3.5 years in Douglas County since 1984. In 2006, that stopped, and we went 12 years without capital funding. There's no capital funding from the state. So when the district doesn't have capital funding, the 111 buildings that we're responsible for degrade significantly. We couldn't replace HVAC units, carpet, roofs, I had theaters closed. I mean, it was horrible because we just couldn't, there was nothing we could do to maintain buildings without that capital funding. Until 2018, when the bond, our first bond in 12 years passed. In 2018, that bond was able to cover all of that deferred maintenance from those 12 years. So our buildings are now in much better shape. They're not beautiful like our libraries, but they have functioning HVAC, carpet, roofs, etc. They're all more or less up to date in terms of that critical maintenance. In order to build new schools, we need to ask for another bond. That's just how it works. People in Highlands Ranch paid for the schools in Parker. People in Parker paid for the new schools in my community. And I'll be paying for the new schools in our newer communities. That's just how that works and how it was contemplated to work. Next slide, please. So again, we have 111 buildings that we're responsible for. We have 89 schools, so almost all of them are schools. And in order to maintain them, that only can come from capital funding, which only comes from a local bond election for the school district. It costs us about $30 million a year to maintain our capital infrastructure in terms of those 111 buildings. And that cost, like everything else, is continuing to go up because of inflation. And then, as I mentioned, we haven't built a neighborhood school since 2010. And if only I could pick up a school from the middle of Highlands Ranch and plop it into Sterling Ranch or Crystal Valley or here in North Parker, but that's not how that works either. We have to be able to provide neighborhood schools for our new communities. Next slide. We're incredibly appreciative of the 2018 bond and mill levy override. So I want to make sure that I cover a little bit about what that went for. The 2018 mill levy override put a counselor in every single school. You can imagine that the timing for that was incredible. Our kids have been through a lot over the last 2 years. Our educators have been through a lot. Our parents have been through a lot over the last 2 years. And those counselors have been really key into helping our kids navigate. We were also able to raise starting pay, which helps. But we've got to raise pay for all of these educators so that we can compete with Cherry Creek School District. If you'll indulge me for just a second to tell a personal story. My youngest daughter graduated from one of our amazing public high schools. When she went into high school, she had access to a biotechnology program. She was splicing DNA. She was working with researchers from the University of Virginia. She had access to CRISPR technology. It was incredible. But what she really had is 2 teachers who were former biologists from industry that came in, built this program from nothing, and inspired my kid as a freshman. She's now a freshman in college in bioengineering. And it's because of the amazing work that our school district did. Without the amazing educators that take care of and inspire our kids, all the programming in the world doesn't mean anything. Those biologists, they can get $20,000 more at least if they go to Cherry Creek School District. We can't allow that to happen. I want kids to have the same opportunities that my daughter had in the future. I want to make sure that we continue to sustain that level of excellence and opportunity that we have in Douglas County. Finally, the 2018 bond covered again that deferred maintenance, and we were able to purchase the former Wildlife Experience building in Lone Tree for only $10 million. That's less than we were planning on spending on building our own really small campus for innovation for high schoolers. The Wildlife Experience campus will allow us to offer certified nursing assistant, aeronautics, a whole number of amazing career technical education to high schoolers, to 1,000 or more high schoolers. It's an incredible opportunity, and that bond made that possible. Next slide, please. So where are we at now? Well, here I am. I'm talking to you all because we're going to need to put something on the ballot in November. At least that will be staff's recommendation to the Board of Education in August. It's ultimately up to the Board of Education, but we have to be able to keep our amazing educators so that they can continue to do the great work for kids that they have always done, whether it's teaching a second grader how to read, which is truly a science, or whether it's inspiring a future bioengineer. We also have to be able to build new schools for our new communities and take care of the schools that we already have. And those things can happen through a mill levy override and a bond election. That will be staff's recommendation to our Board of Education. What would be the impact on taxpayers? Next. It would be $1 a week per $100,000 of home value. So if you have a $500,000 home, that's $5 a week. If you have $1 million home, that's $10 a week. That would be the impact of both the bond and mill levy override passing for our schools. We know that it's an incredibly difficult time. We know that there's been controversy. We know that we've got inflation, and this is not a great time in terms of our economy, but it's not going to get any better. And in order to hold on to our educators and to make sure that we're continuing to take care of our community, continuing to be that economic engine for our district, I don't think we have a choice. So that's why I'm here tonight. I'm hoping to help you all understand how your school district is funded and how that works and what our needs are as we move forward. We would be incredibly appreciative to all of our town councils and our county commissioners for considering supporting this initiative by our schools, because it matters. It matters for all of us. All of us in Douglas County benefit from companies coming in, from people coming in, and ultimately from the brightest possible future for our children. So thank you very much for having me. I know you can answer questions if you can go to the next slide. Again, it always comes down to what we want for our kids. And I think all of us in our community want to make sure that our kids have the best future possible. One more slide. There are a couple of QR codes for anyone here who's interested, who's watching or watching on the live stream, who want to get involved. And again, I know you all can't answer questions, but I'm really grateful for the time tonight and for you all hearing me out. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Superintendent Kane. We appreciate you coming here, and please send our best to your board, too.
I
know
sure
they're,
will.
They're taking last month off, but they're back to work this month.
They
right?
are back to work
All
on
right,
August 9th.
all right.
Yes, thank you so much.
Great, thank you. All right, next item up is public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for town residents and other interested individuals to speak about items that are not on the agenda. We'll do this during the first 30 minutes, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. So I don't have anyone signed up, but is there anyone in the room wishing to make public comment? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to reports, items, and comments from mayor and council. So I'll start to my left. Councilman Dyak.
Thank you very much. On July 20th, E470 had a board meeting. We talked about a road widening contract amendment. E470 is about ready to do I think a $270 million road expansion up on I-70, in the I-70 area and north. We also talked about a central maintenance facility update. The current maintenance facility is located right around where the Aurora Highlands is going to be built. The Aurora Highlands bought that from the authority, and we are relocating the maintenance facility to where our administrative services facility is for greater synergies. Dr. Cog had a meeting on the 20th. Our Performance and Engagement Committee, we did a collaborative assessment prep. That is where we self ask questions of the board to see how we can get better as a board. We also talked about the Executive Director Performance Evaluation. We're going to tee that up here in the next month or so and get that taken care of. The board meeting, we talked about greenhouse gases. That is something the state is promoting, if you will. We are in a non-attainment status here in the Denver area, so we have had to create a mitigation action plan. I attended the Home Builders Association Housing Summit. I will leave that go to other council members. They can fill you in on that. I hosted a Town of Parker pre-candidate forum with Councilmember Hefta. Let's see here, on the 28th, I had a joint E470 Finance and Roadway Committee meeting. Two of the items were capital projects update and capital finance plan update. As you can well imagine, the inflation has caused projects to go up, and we are trying to figure out how we can pay for those projects to make sure that they are on time. And today I attended the Debbie Jackson Golf Benefit. It's more of a non-civic thing, but it has civic roots. It is where a local nonprofit has raised over $22,000 to give to 8 students here in Douglas County. Those 8 students have challenges and may not have been put in a position to go to college, but through this event, this fundraising, provides financial support for them to to make it in. So again, a very worthy charity, and I'm just so blessed to be a part of it. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Councilmember Barrington.
On July 20th, I attended the Partnership of Douglas County Governments, and we had Superintendent Kane give us that same presentation. And on July 27th, I attended the Home Builder Association Housing Summit, where we had some really interesting presentations, one being just elevated inflation, rising rates, and the other one was just a housing market overview for home builders and a rapid shift in sentiment. The top concerns relate to affordability, probably being no surprise there. I also attended the Douglas County Housing Partnership Board meeting, and there was some exciting stuff that we talked about. One of the highlights is the La Quinta in Castle Rock. And there is going to be a partnership between the Douglas County Housing Authority. They are going to be assisting in planning for this project and just as a consultant. So looking forward to hearing where this is going to go from here, but could be some. And Wellspring, if you don't know what that is, I wasn't real familiar with them, but so they are a community in Castle Rock, empowering the lives of adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So I look forward to one of the next meetings where I can give you an update. Thank you.
Councilmember Hefta.
Well, I guess they're the hard workers this weekend. I'm happy to say I attended the pre-candidate meeting with Councilmember Dyak on 27th July, and he did a fantastic job filling in for our Mayor Toberg on that matter. Kudos, John. Just on a couple of personal notes here, I enjoyed the Douglas County Fair with my family this past weekend. Had a lovely visit in Connecticut. And in honor of my 91-year-old father-in-law who passed away 2 hours ago, he leaves a legacy of a life well lived, and he was 91. He died in Grand Forks peacefully at a nursing home, but I just wanted to mention him, Alan Hefta. And also, I'd like to state that I had a wonderful visit at the O'Brien Pool. Been enjoying that all summer. Want to compliment Mary Colton and her staff for the outstanding lifeguard services I've seen provided there this summer. I've seen numerous saves. I've seen lifeguards working hard. I've seen a lot of great things at O'Brien Pool with a very, very, very crowded pool this summer at O'Brien Park. Facilities are working well, so kudos to the staff taking care of the facilities. Everybody's doing such a great job to help our community out this summer. Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Public Works, and everyone who takes care of O'Brien Pool.
Great. Councilman Hendricks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, you've been gone for a while, so just catching up and nothing to report.
All right. Councilmember Pogue.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for some meetings coming up for the Greater Parker Foundation. So we don't have anything scheduled yet, but that's my area of focus.
Great. Councilman Rivero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Had the honor of attending the Home Builders Association Summit with fellow council members. Very informative, seeing what it is they're looking at and what they're facing. One of the fascinating stats that I took in was that for every $1,000 out of obviously hundreds of thousands of dollars home, every $1,000 that price goes up, they lose approximately 250 citizens that can't buy that home. So if you think about the jumps we've seen lately, that's a significant amount of folks that fall into the unaffordable category. And we did learn that the home builders do recognize that it is an overpriced market, and hopefully there will be some correction there. But again, a fascinating summit. And then had the honor of chairing the Cherry Creek Basin Water Quality Authority last week. Again, doing some great stuff. We'll see some action by them tonight later on. And just a fabulous organization that really does lead to a better, healthy reservoir for recreation and other things. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. Sounds like a busy week. I was out of town this week in the unfortunate U.S. Virgin Islands for my day job, but I did have a chance to meet with the governor there. And so just if you can picture Parker, right, in U.S. Virgin Islands, they have 30,000 registered voters. We have 45,000. They top out at 100, and we top out at around 67, 70. So the governor and the lieutenant governor were like, how is it? So they have the lieutenant governor and 15 senators. That's their entire government. And I said, well, we've got a mayor and 6 council members. And he said, and do you all get along like we do? And I said, well, I don't know, sometimes. But then he really wanted to talk about the dynamic because they're very, very, very interested in what goes on the mainland. So that's where I've been. So I don't have many in-town things to report. So we'll move on. Did you have something, Michelle? Okay, sorry about that. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of the consent agenda item unless council votes to remove an item for individual discussion. Ordinances on the consent agenda are for introduction only and will not be removed for discussion. So council, you have 5A through 5I for your review.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda items 5A through 5I, please.
I'll second that.
Motion is made by Councilman Rivero, seconded by Councilmember Pogue. Rivero?
Aye.
Pogue?
Aye.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Next up is our first public hearing of the night on the Kime Ranch sketch and preliminary plan. So I will go ahead and open up the public hearing at 7:38, and we will turn that over to Julia Duncan.
Great, thank you, and good evening, Mayor and Council members. Before you this evening is the Kime Ranch sketch and preliminary plan. The site is located on the north side of Main Street at the intersection of Willow Park Drive. The subject area is bounded on the north by unincorporated Douglas County with large lot single-family homes, to the south by open space and Willow Point South single-family homes, to the east by Willow Point North single-family homes, and to the west by Parker Vista single-family homes. 7.5 acres of the property were annexed into the town on December 6, 2021, and the entire 42.91 acres of the property were zone plan development at that time. The subject property is located within the medium-density residential character area. This character area consists of an overall gross density of 3.5 dwelling units per acre. The Kime Ranch plan development permits a maximum of 150 single-family residential lots with associated parks and open space. The proposed sketch and preliminary plan would allow a total of 150 single-family lots on 42.91 acres at a proposed density of 3.49 units per acre, along with the required roadway, drainage, parks, and open space. The sketch and preliminary plan proposes 10.32 acres of open space and 3.67 acres of park space to meet the minimum requirements of the annexation agreement and town land development ordinance. Buffers have been provided along the entire perimeter of the property in excess of those required by the Kime Ranch PD. For instance, they increased the northern landscape buffer from the required 40 feet in the PD to 65 feet, increased the average buffer on the eastern boundary from the 30-foot required in the PD to 39 feet, increased the minimum setback along Main Street from the 35-foot minimum required to 48 feet, and the average setback is over 110 feet, with the furthest lots being 250 feet from Main Street. These buffer areas will include landscaping and parks, amenities for the development which is permitted by the zoning. Access will be provided through an extension of Willow Park Drive to the north of Main Street. Willow Park Drive will be a full movement signalized intersection. An internal network of private drives will connect Willow Park Drive to the residential areas. Park Lane Drive and Gray's Peak Drive will also be connected through the development. These internal private drives will conform to the Town of Parker's criteria and be owned and maintained by the future HOA. The development is required to provide 3.5 acres of park space and is providing 3.67 acres. The development will include several park amenities to satisfy the required park dedication requirements. The park area will consist of both active and passive elements, including playgrounds, shelter with seating, ping pong tables, slope sledding, a slope sledding hill, barbecues, and gardens. Residential design minimums for the single-family homes require a future application. In addition, the proposed height of all buildings will be required to meet the maximum height limitation within the PD. Staff has reviewed the proposal and has determined that the project is consistent with the master plan. All plating requirements of the Crime Ranch PD and Land Development Ordinance have been satisfied. The proposal provides adequate access, infrastructure, drainage, and design considerations. Utility providers have confirmed capacity and availability. All referral agency comments have been addressed or will be addressed at the time of final plat, and the public notice requirements have been satisfied. The Planning Commission unanimously approved recommending approval for the plans on July 14th, 2022. Therefore, staff and the Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve the Kime Ranch sketch and preliminary plan. This concludes my report. The applicant's representative, Paul Shukas of PCS Group, is also here for a brief presentation and to answer any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you, Julia. We'll turn to staff questions. Councilmember Hefta?
None.
Councilmember Barrington?
No questions.
Councilman Dyak?
No questions, thank you.
Councilman Hendricks?
None now.
Councilmember Pogue?
Yes. In the initial look that we had at this property, there were significantly less buffers between surrounding properties. What was the difference? It looks like you've added some, but how much did you add, especially to the north side and the east and west sides?
Sure. So nothing in the PD was modified, but through community outreach on behalf of the applicant, working with primarily the residents to the north of the property in unincorporated Douglas County. That northern property in the PD had a 40-foot required setback. They've now increased that to 65 feet. There's also a portion on the eastern boundary from 30 feet to 39 feet. Along Main Street from 35 feet to 48 feet, with the average being 110 feet along Main Street. But the biggest significant change was to that northern boundary, 40 feet to 65 feet.
Thank you.
Councilman Rivera?
Thank you. Did I understand correctly that these will be private drives once they enter into this community?
Most of the drives in town within subdivisions are private. They're maintained by the HOA, but they're publicly accessible.
I'm going to beg to differ on that.
So it's a publicly accessible right-of-way. There's no gate, there's no prohibited access, but it's maintained by the HOA.
I'm going to ask Julie to step up, please.
Stacy.
Stacy, I'm sorry.
Yes. So most of the roads in the town are owned and maintained within local subdivisions by the town.
Yes.
And these roads will be owned and maintained by the town as well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That makes more sense.
Yes,
Josh, good?
that's it. Thank you.
All right. Your applicant is here, Mr. Shukas? Great. Sir, if you'll come down and introduce yourself and your address for the record.
My name is Paul Shukas. I'm with PCS Group. My address is 200 Calumet Street in Denver, 80223.
Great. Thanks, sir.
So, Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you so much for being here this evening. I think Julia did a great job presenting our application. I'll do my best to be really brief and succinct and not repetitive. I don't have a clicker. Should I? Next slide, please. So I'm representing the land planning and landscape architectural portion of the project. We're with PCS Group. We've been around for 20 years. We have had the privilege to work in Parker over that last 20 years and actually got our start here as well. So it's great to be back. JR Engineering is also here. They are our civil engineer. They've been in business for the last 45 years and also are no stranger to Parker, Colorado. Next slide, please. Or next slide, please. Whoops, one more back. So Century Communities is also here. They are the developer and builder. They offer a multitude of different style homes, single family, townhomes, condominiums, apartments. However, we're here to talk about their single family collection. They were founded in 2002, became publicly traded in 2014, and also have a strong presence here in Parker. Next slide, please. So I shared this with you the last time I was in front of you. This is the Rowley Ranch. We're talking about the little red blip, which is Kime Ranch in the middle right now. However, back in the day, one of the Rowley daughters married Harvey Kime. It was a large cattle ranch, and as you can see, it sold off over time and shaped a portion of Parker to what it is today. I'm here to talk to you about the 45 acres. Next slide. So this just gives me a quick opportunity to thank staff, specifically Julia, for being a liaison through this process. It's not an easy one, and we really appreciate her guidance with the sketch and preliminary plan. You know, it doesn't take just us, you know, landscape architects and planners to create a good land plan. Staff has had a ton of input. Council members have actually shaped this plan. And our neighbors have also shaped it as well. You know, candidly, at the last hearing at Planning Commission, we only had public testimony that was positive, and it was unsolicited. And I have been doing this for quite a while, and that typically doesn't happen. And it was a really gratifying thing to see as we worked with our neighbors. Next slide. So once again, I'm here to just respectfully request sketch and preliminary plan. This is the annexation Julia went over. I was here before you 7 or 8 months ago, which you had approved. Next slide. We meet the general land use standards. Councilmember Pogue. So this is our PD, which you all had graciously approved the last time I was here. So after listening to some of our neighbors and listening to you all speak, we took into consideration trying to really shape our land plan to increase some of the setbacks that we had set forth. So we increased all of them, actually. So the members to our neighbors to the north, we used to have in the county a 70 and a 40-foot setback. We increased that to 80 and 65 feet. Julia mentioned on the west side, we increased those from 35 to almost 40 and 60 feet. And on the east side, sorry, I got that mixed up. That was the east side. On the west side, we increased them to 40 to 50 feet. It's a gradual change just because the property line kind of is skewed. And on the south side along Main Street, we had a 35-foot buffer. It goes anywhere from 50 to 250 feet, and I'll get into that in just a moment. So this is our sketch plan. The biggest takeaway here is all of the green, light and dark, represents around 30 to 35% of the property. All of the gray, which are our public streets, represent about 20%, and then the remainder, which are our lots, represent about 50%. This slide is really just to show it's an infill property. We all know that infill development is great, smart growth, but it's challenging. It's infill for a reason. So really, we're proposing uses that are compatible basically with our neighbors on the west in Parker Vista and to the east with Sunset Ridge. The densities are really the same. The only biggest difference is our open space. And the amount of lots that we're proposing versus the amount of open space and parks that we're also proposing is quite a bit more. And that's really just a testament to you all and to staff. As the town has grown, you've recognized a need, and it's showing in this land plan. So here's our land plan in all our beauty. I'm not going to go through the minutia of what we've done, but go back real quick. 3 things I want to touch on. We're making connectivity to 3 different streets. Parker has got a lot in their comp plan about connecting to roads, making sure that we promote connectivity to different neighborhoods. Most of our traffic is coming, almost all of it is coming from Main Street, heading north. We've really tried hard to create a big open green space as you come into the community. And then you really only get to one lot after like 300 feet and then hit a centralized park. We've been really, really diligent about siting this park. Not only does it take up a lot of grade because there is a lot of fall from north to south, but it's centrally located, so it really promotes pedestrian connectivity and people to walk to it because it is kind of equidistant from a lot of different spaces in the neighborhood. And then lastly, we've got over a mile of walking trails that go around the perimeter of the site that don't include the sidewalk that are attached to the streets. Okay. So this is just some benefits and a quick view of our plan. We have huge perimeter buffers now that exceed the PD. We have over a mile of walking trails. We're going to have multiple shade structures and benches and different areas for passive seating as well as active areas. We have picnic tables and shade structures. We're going to propose places for kinetic art. We have a sledding hill. We do have a large flat surface on this site that's around 220 feet in diameter. It's a multi-field. We'll have themed gardens and grill stations. And we also have a site plan that discourages a lot of cut-through traffic. So traffic is something that is always something we need to be sensitive to. And I'm not saying that people won't use other public streets within the community. However, we've done our very, very best to create a site plan that discourages people to cut through traffic. So on the west side of the property, our farthest lot is 2,000 feet away. If they were to cut through the property to the west in Parker Vista, they would have to travel 2,400 feet. They'd have to make 4 turns as opposed to 2 turns going through our community. And I'm not saying people won't do this, but when you typically give folks directions or when they're driving, they take the shortest distance from A to B. Same with the east side of our property. It's 1,700 feet basically from our furthest lot to get to our intersection. It's 2,000 feet and an extra turn to go east through Sunset Ridge. Now, I'm not saying, once again, they're not going to do it. It's an option available to them, but it's probably not going to happen. So this is a quick animation of our project to just give you a flavor. Hopefully it'll play. So this is our entry wall at the community. It will greet drivers upon arrival at Main Street. You can see some of that big buffer and green spaces I was talking about as the entry sequence. That also doubles as some of our water quality. You can begin to see that mile of trails that we're going to propose around the perimeter and actually get a feel for what some of those buffers really look like around the northern edge of our property. You can see some of the green spaces that these trails go by. This is some of the passive areas within the park and the terracing that's happening with benches and gaming tables. This is some of our more active areas where our tot lots are. You can see our themed garden with some seating. Here is some of the terracing with some shade shelters. You see our sledding hill, that multi-use field that's at the top. And as we pan around, you can see a few of the different tot lots, the swing set. These are some of the colorful cows that we're going to preserve from the site and nod of the history of the project. Here are some of the community amenities that are seating and gathering areas that hopefully bring community and people together. We anticipate that more than just our neighborhood will use it, and it will be open to other neighborhoods as well. This is just a quick view of that park space from above. You can see active versus passive, and then our colorful cows at our entry when you come into the community. So to close this, you can do our next slide. I don't really want to go through this verbatim unless you'd like me to, and we can revisit it. But we really just feel like we meet a lot of the town's policies, goals, master plans, principles. We're an infill site. We meet all of the density requirements as it relates to our PD and the general land use plan. We promote connectivity. We're a great active, we're trying to bring residents together. We are not asking for any variances with our public roads or streets. You can go on. We meet all of the requirements and setbacks of this PD and actually exceed them. And lastly, we're an infill site, so there's a lot of services already available, whether they be utility or public. So that's what I have. I tried to keep that around 10 minutes. I'm here to address any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Certainly.
We'll start to my right, Councilman Rivero. questions?
No questions at this time.
Councilmember Pogue?
Oh, I have a question, but I want to thank you.
You're welcome.
You have done something that I really felt was important by adding that buffering to your neighboring communities. And then adding the trail around the perimeter is brilliant. So I think you've done a fantastic job. But I do have a question. What is the elevation change between the south end of the project to the north end?
130 feet, 120 feet total.
Not too bad.
It's not. However, it does come with its inherent challenges with life safety, making sure that we meet the Parker criteria for roads. As Parker has grown, the open space and park requirements have grown with that, as well as street and roadway requirements too. So, thank you though.
So in looking at your park design, it looks like you're trying to offset some of that elevation change throughout that center park.
That is correct. So we have an active park at the top, which we've tried to make flat, and then we've terraced it down. So that's where you see some more of the passive gathering spaces and garden
Congratulations,
spaces.
perfect.
Thank you.
Councilman Hendricks?
No questions.
Councilman Dag?
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Barrington?
I saw a list of some of the public notice or the public meetings that you have had, and I think those are just recent. But how many have you had? I know there's been quite a few. I just didn't know if those were just the most recent that were listed.
So those were the most notable ones. Our neighbors to the north in the county, while we're all a single-family use in terms of compatibility with use, that's the biggest difference, is our folks to the north in the county, as they have much larger lots than everything to the south of us in Parker Vista, Kime Ranch, and Sunset Ridge. So we've had quite a few discussions and actually site and visual studies with them that are still ongoing should you accept this preliminary plan and sketch plan today.
All right, thank you.
Certainly.
Councilmember Hefta?
I like the way you designed that deterring traffic through your community. Could you expand how you came up with that concept just a little?
Certainly. Can you go back to maybe the overall site plan or the keep going, or maybe right there. That's fine. So in Parker Vista to the west, there was already a road that dead-ended, no cul-de-sac. So that is a control point that the town of Parker felt like it was important for us to connect to. And same with the east. There was a dead-end road that, no cul-de-sac, that was anticipated for connection. Elevation has a big part to do with it. There's quite a bit of grade change from both those intersections to Main Street. So we had to be really creative about making sure that we connected appropriately, but didn't do it in a circuitous enough route where it made things very difficult to navigate. So we felt like this was the cleanest and easiest connection to make while still discouraging traffic. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, at this time, we're going to open this up for public comment. Anybody from the public wishing to make a comment on the sketch plan or the preliminary plan on this project? Seeing none, we'll move on and close the public hearing at 8:01, and we will bring it back to the council for any final comments or debate. Councilman Rivera, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. There are 5 criteria which we judge these preliminary plans and sketch plans on. And you did state within your presentation the green check marks. Well done. I will state that, when we look at it, do you fit, the surrounding area? Yes, your density is within the neighbors to your west and to your east. You squeezed in 150. It's well planned. It's getting every last home we wanted in there. I do acknowledge the buffer increase. I also understand the balance that you had to do to increase that buffer was maybe decreasing your Central Park. I want to acknowledge also the fact that you maintained a Central Park, because I think that bonding is what you need in a new community. You need a place where those kids are going to play together, where they're going to grow up together, where they're going to go to school across the street at Pioneer together. I think it's very, very important to maintain and keep a Central Park. So I'm glad that you were able to find an increase in buffer, yet still maintain an anchor piece. And even with the cows, I'm very, very happy for the cows. I've driven by the cows for decades, and as long as Ginger's got them, I'm glad they're maintaining and they're staying there. So again, kudos on the increase to the buffer, but also kudos on maintaining a Central Park and an anchor to your community. I find that the 5 criteria, specifically consistency with the master plan, I find it meets that, and item 2, consistency with the land development ordinance, I find it meets that. I'm in favor of this project.
Councilmember Polk?
Yeah, I would like to compliment you on your Central Park, because I like the concept where you've elevated and flattened out a playing field, because you're going to have a lot of little kids needing a place for group sports. So thanks for putting that in as well.
Councilman Hendricks?
Yes, I agree with my fellow council members. That meets the criteria set forth. I appreciated the presentation, especially the animation. I appreciated the thought you put into the buffer and the park, so I approve of this as well.
Great. Councilman Dyak?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think sitting up here for the last 10 years, we've heard what could this parcel be? I think many opportunities presented themselves, and quite honestly, I'm analytics, so I need this visual. But the visualization of what you have provided seems very pleasing. Criteria has been met, and kind of bittersweet that we're losing one more piece of our historical past. But I think you've done well. Thank you.
Councilman Barrington?
I also agree that you've met the criteria, and I think it's great use of the infill. I think it is smart growth. The visuals that you've given, I really appreciate that. I know it's not going to look exactly like that when it's first ready to go. The trees won't be quite so tall, but I hope they will be someday. And I'm excited to see this come, and thank you for preserving the cows. I think that's a piece of history that we all just really appreciate. Thank you for meeting with the neighbors also, and just listening. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Hefta?
Yes, I would echo my fellow council members' thoughts on this. It does meet the 5 criteria for consideration in this application. Thank you for the increased buffers and listening to council on that. Also outstanding on the shade structures in the playground. I know that you're helping so many residents in Parker by putting those shade structures in. And helping them, protecting them from the hot sun that we have here till like September, October, like 6 months of summer sometimes. So thank you. I want to compliment you on your presentation. I truly wish that others were here to learn from your presentation. It's the first time I saw an animation. Your animation was outstanding, and your PowerPoint was outstanding. The way you covered the criteria for consideration and the way you walked us through this step by step was very thorough and professional, and I thank you for the hard work on that, to the entire staff, architects, engineers, and also for showing up. It shows a lot of respect when folks show up to walk us through this. Makes it easier for town council to understand the concept as well as the public. So thank you very much.
Councilman Rivera, you have to go back.
Yeah, I apologize. One more thing I wanted to touch on was the infill, and you mentioned it very much in the very beginning of your presentation. The load that is put onto the infill pieces, when Parker Vista is built and when Sunset Ridge is built, they don't think about setbacks. They push those fence lines. So the infills get the burden of creating that buffer, and, that's rightfully so, first come, first serve, right? But I did want to recognize that you did, even though they were pushed to their fence lines, that you did recognize that buffer. Secondly, and most importantly for me, I think as the water guidance, I think as we are shifting, I went through your park plan. I just want to acknowledge the amount of evergreens that you have in your park plan. I truly appreciate that. We're seeing more. I would love to see even more, but I do want to acknowledge how many evergreens you have in this plan, and would be happy if you wanted to amend it. No, I'm just kidding. No, well done.
Thought I was going to say more about the cows. All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion on the sketch plan.
I move to approve the sketch plan based on staff findings contained in the staff report.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Councilmember Pogue, seconded by Councilmember Hefta. Rivera?
All right.
Pogue?
Aye.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Now I'll entertain a motion on the preliminary plan.
I move to approve the preliminary plan based on staff findings contained in the staff report.
I second.
All right. Motion is made by Councilmember Pogue, seconded by Councilmember Hendricks. Rivera?
All right.
Pogue?
Aye.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Congratulations. I think you just could have shown the cows. That would have been it. So it was good, though. All right, we're going to move on to our ordinances for tonight. First ordinance up is ordinance number 9.334.1 on second reading. That has been continued from May 2nd, has had a request for a continuance to a date certain of October 3rd of 2022. So I'll entertain a motion to extend that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made by Councilman Dyak, seconded by Councilman Rivera.
All right.
Pogue?
Aye.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yes.
And that extension is passed 6-0. Next up is ordinance number 9.350 on second reading, a bill for an ordinance approving the intergovernmental agreement between the Douglas County Clerk and Recorder and the Town of Parker regarding the conduct of and administration of the November 8th, 2022 coordinated election. We have our town clerk with us tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chris Vanderpool, Town Clerk, 20120 East Main Street. So under the Uniform Election Code, the town coordinates its elections with Douglas County. On October 7th of this year, Council passed a resolution 22-011 in order to participate in the November 8th Douglas County coordinated election. Under the Uniform Election Code, the town and Douglas County are required to enter into an IGA to conduct the election. And the IGA defines the roles and responsibilities that each will have during the election process. Funds for this election have been included in the town clerk's budget 22 election budget. If there's no questions, I ask Town Council to approve ordinance number 9.350.
Excellent. Thank you, ma'am. But hold on, we're going to see if there's any questions for you. Councilman Hendricks, any questions?
No question.
Councilman Pogue? Councilman Rivera?
Oh, yeah, we can't let her off that easy. This is the first time. Wow. It's the first time in front of us, right? You know. No, I'm kidding. No questions.
Councilman Dyak?
No question.
Councilmember Barrington?
No questions. Great job.
And Councilmember Hefta?
Sure. I have a question. Madam Town Clerk, the budget for this election is about $45,000. Is that consistent with prior years?
So it's gone up. It is based on the number of active registered voters, which is about 40,000. And then there's a little bit extra in case there's extra ballot language or whatever to account for those extra costs.
How much has it gone up by, would you say?
In past years, we've budgeted about 35.
Thank you.
And then we'll open this up for public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to make a comment on this ordinance? Okay, we'll close that at 8:11. We'll bring it back to the council for any further debate. We'll start with Councilman Hendricks.
I got nothing.
Councilmember Pogue? Rivera?
Elections, huh? Not good.
Dyak?
Nothing.
Barrington?
No, thanks.
And Councilmember Hefta?
Nice job, Madam Town Clerk.
Thank you.
You're working hard.
All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion on ordinance number 9.350.
I move to approve ordinance number 9.350 on second reading.
I'll second that.
Motion is made by Councilmember Hendricks, seconded by Councilmember Pogue. Rivera?
Aye.
Pogue?
Aye.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Next up is ordinance number 1.391.2 on second reading. A bill for an ordinance to amend section 1.02.010 and 2.03.020 of the Parker Municipal Code to change the terminology of town administrator to town manager. Madam Town Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Article 4 of the Parker Home Charter establishes the office of a town administrator, who is the chief administrative officer of the town, who serves at the pleasure of the council, and provides that the town administrator shall be responsible to council and perform such duties as provided by ordinance. Section 1.02010 of the code defines the town administrator as the chief administrative officer of the town. And then Section 2.03020 outlines that chief administrative officer's functions and duties. The labels of administrator and manager have no commonly accepted meaning or generally applicable definition. This ordinance will change the terminology of town administrator to town manager by equating the two titles and making it clear that a town manager would be acting within the authority prescribed by the charter to the town's chief administrative officer, who's now called the town administrator. This ordinance simply authorizes an alternative title for the same chief administrative officer position established by the charter, does not alter the powers, duties, qualifications, terms, or tenure of any municipal office established by the charter. It does not create a new office, and it does not reassign duties from one office to another. It's simply changing the terminology of town administrator to town manager. Are there any questions?
Excellent. We'll start to my left. Councilman Dyak?
No questions.
Councilmember Barrington?
So just for clarification, the change in title will probably help us when hiring other managers, because I think that it was maybe deterring people from even applying for positions, because they were under the impression that it was more of an administrative role versus a managerial, like what you're doing.
Are you trying to get rid of me?
I'm trying to help.
When do we post the
I know. So as
People under you.
yeah, as Kristen alluded to, it is the town manager and town administrator, or city manager, city administrator is somewhat interchangeable, but at the same time, the terminology for administrator is antiquated and doesn't really articulate or define what the job is in current times. And so recently, because the deputy town manager and assistant town manager report to me, and I'm able to change those titles, I did want to update them. And so I did go in and change those to managers from administrators, primarily also because it doesn't adequately define what those positions are, because it can seem to be that it's not a full service organization or position. I do think it does help with the recruitment for those positions, but it also really makes us more consistent with not only communities in Colorado, but nationwide with my title as well. Does that answer your question?
Perfectly.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hefta?
You know I like to research things. And yeah, I think that the name change is is appropriate, because with manager is assigned much responsibility, and you are responsible for administering all or part of the organization of the town of Parker. Whereas I think administrator, it sounds like you're just providing office support to everyone, and instead our town manager is in charge of many different sections of the town, of all the directors. Everyone reports to our town manager. So I think it's a good change.
Councilmember Hendricks?
No questions.
Councilmember Pogue?
Yes, I want to verify that this will not cost anything to do this. It's simply a titling change, correct?
Right, we're not going to, it's not a recodification, we're not going to have to recodify the charter. It will not change that title in the charter. She'll still be referred to as a town administrator in the charter. As well, we're not proposing to recodify the term town administrator throughout the code. This is simply that we will refer to her as a town manager. There will be small codification costs to codify this ordinance. I think there's probably some costs for new business cards. So there is a minor cost, but nothing significant.
Yeah, in the past with prior councils, the biggest problem was the recodification of the charter and everything else, which was a huge expense. So this provides an avenue to get this done without a large expense. Correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilman Rivera.
Thank you. Actually, the question is for Michelle. Could you tell me just regionally how many of your peers are still referred to as administrators?
Not many. I am mocked at times, yes. So it is the Colorado City and County Managers Association. It is the International City and County Management Association. I participate in the Douglas County Managers Group, the Arapahoe County Managers Group. None of those are administrators in the local ones. There are very few that are referred to as administrator. I don't know the exact amount, but it's not something that's widely used at all anymore.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to open this for public comment at 8:18. Anyone wishing to make public comment on this ordinance, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close it at 8:18. Council, I don't know if you have comments. We'll start with Councilman Rivera.
Thank you. Just real quick, I appreciate Councilmember Pogue's comments too. I like keeping things the way they were. I like the charter existing as it is, and this allows us to do this by ordinance. I'm heavily in favor of this. It's rightly deserved. Where I truly appreciate what the founders of this community saw in the word administrator and its definition, it has changed. And administrator is not maybe revered to as the same level that maybe a manager is nowadays, and I think it's time we updated, but without changing our charter and without going to the peeps. So I truly appreciate the work done by legal and appreciate Michelle's persistence. Well done.
Councilmember Pogue.
I have no further statements.
Councilmember Hendricks.
I'm good.
Councilman Dyke.
I just want to make sure, Councilmember Rivera, I don't think Michelle quite accurately identified a number of other fellow administrators.
Conditions?
Do we need to maybe continue this, or are you okay with the not many answer?
Maybe we have conditions.
2. I'll go with number 2.
I'm good.
Councilmember Barrington.
Well-deserved title.
Councilmember Hefta.
Nothing, thank you.
And just as a point of personal preference here, Doug, Seth, Dave, Michael, they all called and said, please don't do this. She's going to be relentless if she comes in and says, I'm a manager now. So, but it's a well-deserved. And I just, for everyone, I think you have to go back to 81 in the charter. We had a strong mayor system. An administrator was the right hand, was the one running the operations. We've since moved away from that. And Michelle, you have proven yourself time and time again as the manager, and it will be less weird now whenever we travel out there and to call you the administrator. So with that, I'll entertain a motion on ordinance number 1.391.2 on second reading.
I move to approve ordinance number 1.391.2 on second reading.
Second.
Motion is made by Councilmember Barrington, seconded by Councilmember Hefta. Rivera.
Aye.
Pogue.
Aye.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Congratulations, Madam Town Manager.
Thank you all. I appreciate
I like
it.
that, man. All right. All right, we'll move into our resolutions for the evening. Resolution number 22-040, a resolution to allow partial waiver of subsection 13-01.140B of the Parker Municipal Code to extend the expiration date of the use by special review for Lincoln Professional Park for a gas station. Hi, Stacy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So again, this is a resolution to extend the Lincoln Professional Park use by special review for a gas station until December 31st of 2022. So the subject site is located at the southeast corner of Lincoln Avenue and Dransfeld Road. The use by special review application was approved by Town Council on May 17th, 2021, and it is valid for 12 months. This expired, then it would have expired in May 17th, 2022, but the applicant asked for a 90-day extension, which is allowed by the code. Administratively, the planning director approved this 90-day extension, and the new expiration date is August 17th, 2022. This exhausts all the administrative extensions available. So after the town council approved the use by special review application, the applicant did have a lot of applications to apply for. The first one was a minor development plat to plat the property. That has been submitted, and you will see that later. Also, a preliminary site plan for the entire development of the site, which was required by the annexation agreement. That is also under review. And then a site plan application for the development of the gas station, which is also under review currently. The applicant has not completed those and is asking for additional time to get through those processes with us. So under the section 1301-100 of the municipal code, the town council may authorize waivers from the provisions of the land development ordinance. So staff believes this request is in the public interest for the following reasons. The use has been planned at this location and has been reviewed and determined to meet the 9 approval criteria. Approval of a waiver would provide for greater efficiency in the development process, and the proposal is consistent with the policies and recommendations of the Parker 2035 Master Plan. Therefore, staff recommends that Town Council approve Resolution 22-040. This concludes my presentation.
Great, Council. Any questions for Stacy? We'll start with Councilmember Hefta.
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Barrington?
No questions.
Councilman Dyak?
No questions.
Councilman Hendricks?
No questions.
Councilmember Pogue?
No questions at this
Councilman
time.
Rivera? All right, we'll open it up for public comment at 8:23. Anyone from the public wish to make public comment on this? Seeing none, we'll close it at 8:23 and bring it back for final debate. Councilmember Hefta?
Sometimes these applications can be challenging, and when town council can help out in any way by extending the date, that's something that I, as a town council member, would like to do, to help out the applicant, to make sure that they can meet all the requirements before the matter comes back before town council for a final vote.
Councilmember Barrington?
No comment, thank you.
Councilman Dyak?
No comments, thank you.
Councilman Hendricks?
No comment.
Councilmember
Further
Pogue?
questions?
And Councilman Rivera?
Yeah, echo Councilwoman Hefta's statements. I believe this applicant has maintained a busy time, and it's not that they're waited till the last minute. They've been active and very cognizant of their time and understanding that their time was ticking. They got proactive and asked for a little bit more. And I believe that their time, I'm not going to say it's us, but maybe it's us and our referral partners, because we are so thorough and because we do demand so much from these applicants. They have a lot to prove. And again, they have to prove it to staff before staff brings it to us. And staff is very, very, very thorough. And this is a perfect example of why I find that the 3 criteria have been met, especially 3B with the commercial district and the central location with access to Parker Road. There is an internal road in there that I am anxiously awaiting, and this parcel is key to that. So thank you.
Excellent. With that, we will entertain a motion on resolution number 22-040.
I move to approve resolution number 22-040.
I'll second that.
Motion is made by Councilman Hendricks, seconded by Councilmember Pogue. Rivera?
Aye.
Pogue?
Aye.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Next up, contracts over $100,000, comprehensive economic development strategic plan, and we have from the town manager's office, Mr. Bo Martinez.
Wow. Didn't take long.
I'm getting $5 every time. So,
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Bo Martinez, Deputy Town Manager, and thank you, Town Manager Kivila. I get to be the first staff person to say that. So this contract, as you stated, is for over $100,000. Total is $138,125, and that's to enter into a contract with Progressive Urban Management Associates to help us develop and create a economic development strategic plan, and we'll rebrand that going forward. And just some background on that: the RFP was issued on February 24th and closed on March 17th. By the Finance Department, the town received 6 proposals from both local and national firms. The evaluation committee included myself, John Fuchsia, Community Development Director, Weldy Vazell with P3. Progressive Urban Management Associates has worked with over 300 clients within 38 states over the past 30 years. So they're a well-qualified firm, and they're also local. Some of the things that they do as part of their portfolios, they develop downtown plans, bid formation and renewal, business improvement districts, community vision and action plans, economic development and resiliency plans, market assessments and trends, and healthy community strategies. Some examples of some of the plans they worked with locally, they helped the town of Parker P3 develop a strategic plan in 2018. They've worked with the city and county of Denver, Colorado Springs, Boulder, Broomfield, Inglewood, Grand Junction, and some of the national clients include Santa Monica, San Antonio, Cleveland, Reno, and Washington, D.C., to name a few. So what the plan is going to include is a three-step approach, and it's heavy on community engagement. The first step will look at external environment assessment, community engagement plan, priorities and aspirations. That's step one. That'll include one-on-one site visits and individual meetings, workshops, roundtables, and conduct an online survey with our residents. It'll also include a market assessment to look at Parker's current market dynamics and economic assets, as well as challenges and opportunities. It would include retail, office, and industrial. And they also will look at demographics, lifestyle, and technologies as identified by their Global Trends Report, which is trademarked by Puma. The second step will be an internal assessment, looking at it from a best practice perspective at municipal economic development initiatives and organizations within the Metro Denver region. They will look up to 5 Colorado communities that have recently refreshed this function, and that'll include looking at priorities, programming, staffing, budgets, and how economic development efforts work within those respective municipalities. And then the third step is a synthesis of the first 2 steps. And then the final steps will be a leadership retreat, and hopefully we'll all come to a consensus to develop a comprehensive economic development strategic plan for the town now and going forward. And some of the things that we'll be focusing on as far as strategies is looking at how do we advance primary employment, small business support, downtown development and corridor development, workforce development, diverse housing stock, transportation, the creative economy, social equity and inclusion, marketing and branding, and then, Councilmember Dyak, you'll appreciate this, benchmarks and performance matrix. So with that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Great. We'll start to my left with Councilmember Dyak. Questions?
No questions.
Councilmember Barrington?
I don't think I have any questions.
Councilmember Hefta?
Yes, Deputy Town Manager. So this is going to be, a combination of active consultations, PowerPoints, meeting with individuals, surveying properties. Am I correct on this?
Yes, we're going to really engage everyone in looking at properties, looking at corridors, and really coming up with a comprehensive plan going forward.
And so is it going to be this management company and you and your staff as well?
Yes, it'll be actually Puma working in partnership with the town, different departments, as well as all our public and private sector partners, which can include the Downtown Business Alliance, the Parker Chamber of Commerce, and other organizations, and as well as residents, brokers, developers, and properties within the town. So it's going to be a pretty comprehensive approach.
And you're going to be spearheading this with this consultant?
Yes, and it'll also be heavy on engagement with our elected officials.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Hendricks?
No questions.
Councilmember Pogue?
Of course. So, Deputy Town Manager, I'm assuming there's a detailed scope of work to go with the benchmarks, correct?
Yes, there's a very detailed scope of work that was provided to us by the consultant, and it'll be something that we will follow as we go through the planning process.
Then you'll share that with Town Council?
Yes, we will.
Okay. And what's the term of this contract?
So we're looking this to be at least a 6 to 9 month process. So the hope is that we can kick this off this fall and have it complete in spring 2023.
Okay, thank you.
And Councilman Rivero?
Thank you. I just want to, what Councilwoman Hefta was leaning to, and I'm just looking for maybe a bright line, is ultimately you are in leadership of this project, correct? It does not fall to an outside organization. You'll be managing this project, correct?
Yes, the town manager's office will be managing this process.
Thank you.
The sword cuts both ways.
See that?
All right, we're going to open up for public comment at 8:31. Anyone in the room? Dwayne, nothing? No, got nothing. All right, we'll close it at 8:32 and bring it back to council. We'll go reverse order. Councilman Rivero, any other comments?
Thank you. When I first got elected, I was like, how can any one organization do so many plans? It's like a plan for this, it's a plan for that. And I just was amazed at what that is. Sitting up here 10 years later, I realize how important they are. And the best way I can sum it up is measure twice, cut once. The plans allow us to not make mistakes. And nothing against our forefathers in this community, but there wasn't a lot of planning. And we have a lot of hodgepodgeness and roads that were never put in and things that didn't happen the right way, maybe because there wasn't planning. And I believe that this plan will allow us to answer some of that. And so as much as 10 years ago I wasn't in favor of spending all these dollars on plans, I've come to realize how important they are and how important they go towards our master plan and what the citizens want for this community. And I think those were important words that Bo mentioned. There is citizen outreach in this. I assume we'll be using Let's Talk Parker. I assume we'll be finding out from the citizens what they would like to see as far as their community goes. So well done, and well done going with Puma. Their CV regionally is incredibly impressive. They do wonders in this area. So thank you.
Councilmember Pogue.
Yeah, I think in the past, we've had a variety of economic development efforts, organizations. Nothing's ever really come to pass. And I think that the development in Parker for a viable employment base has to be the higher-end jobs that our community can grow with those jobs, because right now, people are leaving Parker for those higher-end jobs, and we need to develop a plan that keeps them at home. Thank you.
Councilman Hendricks.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing the fruition of this plan and the positive outcome. I have full faith and support it.
Great. Councilman Dag.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of disagree but agree with Councilmember Rivera. I think we did plan early on. However, when we planned early, the vision that we had that we could achieve what the plans identified, specifically master plan, were just inattainable. So little tweaks early on have profound effect, if you will, on the balance of the plan. So again, I mean, planning is good. You go through the process. We're going to get together. We're going to have to ask questions. We're going to get to consensus. And we need to check back and make sure that we are on course. And with those performance measures, hopefully we have those tools or that dashboard in place where we can have everyone understand if we're on course or off course. Thank you.
Councilmember Barrington.
I think this is right in line with our strategic goals and enhancing our economic vitality. I love that it's going to provide the short and midterm actionable recommendations. And I'm really happy that you're going to be at the helm of this. Great job.
Councilmember Hefta.
Yes, I'd like to thank the deputy town manager and, of course, the town manager for the energy, proficiency, and leadership that they are providing the town of Parker and this community. And I know that working with this consultant may be a little bit more difficult for this consultant than other towns, because I guess in this town we do hold people's feet to the fire, and we do expect a lot. So we definitely want to get our money's worth from this consultant to engage our town and our community on what this community can be and what it will be in the future. So thank you very much, town manager and deputy town manager.
All right, with that, I will entertain a motion on the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategic Plan Contract.
I move to approve the staff recommendation as part of the regular agenda.
I second.
Motion is made by Councilmember Barrington, seconded by Councilmember Hefta. Rivera.
Aye.
Pogue.
Aye.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. With no other business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made by Councilman Rivera. Hendricks seconded. Rivera.
Aye.
Pogue.
Aye.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hefta. And we are adjourned
Yes.
at 8:36.